This is the largest group of people ever assembled in one place. The important thing that you've proven to the world is that 500,000 kids, and I call you kids because I have children older than you are, 500,000 young people can get together and have 3 days of fun and music, and have nothing but fun and music, and I God bless you for it.
The man you just saw was Max Yasgur, the owner of a farm in Bethel, New York, where Woodstock was held. Woodstock, a 3-day concert full of peace and music, took place on August 15th through the 18th in 1969. The concert came about from the later coined hippie movement, which aroused from the young people who opposed the Vietnam War, rejected traditional values, wore bright colors, engaged in the use of illegal drugs, and loved rock and roll. The idea of the concert came from 4 men: Michael Lang, John Roberts, Joel Rosenman, and Artie Cornfield. Lang had experience as a promoter and had already organized the Miami Pop Festival, but Roberts and Rosenman had the finances. Lang and Cornfield noticed an ad in the New York Times which had been posted by Roberts and Rosenman saying, "Young men with unlimited capital looking for interesting, legitimate investment opportunities and business propositions." Immediately, the 4 men got together, forming Woodstock Ventures, and discussed the idea of making a recording studio in Woodstock. The idea eventually evolved into an outdoor festival. In April 1969, Creedence Clearwater Revival was the first band to agree to play at Woodstock. At first, the organizers claimed it was hard getting bands and artists to play, but once the band signed, the other organizers came in much easier. The concert would be too big to take place in Woodstock, so the organizers decided on a place in Wallkill, New York. However, just 31 short days before the concert took place, the Board of Appeals decided to ban the concert from happening. Luckily, Max Yasgur agreed to let Woodstock take place on his 600-acre farm in Bethel, but the town of Bethel wanted no part in the festival taking place. He refused to send their police troops to monitor the concert, and residents protested, making signs saying, "Buy no milk, stop Max's hippie music festival from happening." Despite the way Bethel felt about the concert, no matter what, it would still take place. The late change in venue did not give the festival organizers enough time to prepare. At a meeting 3 days before the event, they felt like they had to choose between 2 options. One was to improve the fencing and security to keep people from sneaking in, but that may have resulted in violence. The other involved putting all their resources into completing the stage, which would cause Woodstock venues to take a financial hit. The crowd, which was arriving in greater numbers and earlier than anticipated, forced the decision upon them. The fence was cut the night before, and it was declared free. The declaration of a free concert had 2 huge effects. The first was that the organizers were going to lose a lot of money, and the second was that as the news spread that it was now a free concert, an estimated 1 million people headed to Bethel, New York. Police had to turn away thousands of cars. It is estimated that 500,000 people actually made it to the festival. No one had planned for this many people. The highways in the area literally became parking lots as people abandoned their cars in the middle of the street and walked the final distance to the Woodstock Festival. Traffic was so bad that the organizers had to hire helicopters to shuttle the performers from their hotels to the stage. Most of the people arriving at Woodstock were young adults, which became the main force of Woodstock. The post-World War II baby boomer generation had created 70 million teenagers growing up in the 60s. Finally, the main attraction of Woodstock began. The music. The day the concert began, the weather was rainy and muddy, adding to the numerous problems, but despite all the complications and changes, the concert still managed to start on the 15th of August. Richie Havens got up on stage and began the festival with the first act. The music played till late Friday night and started up again around noon the next day. The concert included 32 of the most influential bands and artists at the time. Folk singer Joan Baez sang through the rain and was also 6 months pregnant at the time. Janis Joplin, known as the Queen of Rock and Roll during her time, also performed 10 songs. A number of musicians performed songs expressing their opposition to the Vietnam War, an opinion that was very common upon the audience. Being one of them, Country Joe and the Fish had one of their best performances at Woodstock.
Well, come on, all of you big strong men, Uncle Sam needs your help again. Got himself in a terrible jam, way down yonder in Vietnam. Put down your books and pick up a gun, we're gonna have a whole lot of fun. And it's 1, 2, 3, what are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. The next stop is Vietnam.
With not enough bathroom facilities and first aid tents to accommodate such a huge crowd, many describe the atmosphere at the festival as chaotic. However, there was surprisingly not a lot of violence. The crowd, later considered hippies, all worked together to enjoy 3 peaceful days. They seemed to be sharing everything, and a feeling of peace was between them. They created different tents for different things, including a food tent, a drink tent, a hospital tent, and a tripping tent. A large amount of the crowd consumed all sorts of drugs at the event, and some overdosed, causing them to trip. It was obvious to everyone on Sunday that the festival was winding down. Most of the crowd left throughout the day, leaving about 150,000 people on Sunday night. When Jimi Hendrix, the last musician to play at Woodstock, finished his set on early Monday morning, the crowd was down to only 25,000. Jimi Hendrix played his own version of the Star-Spangled Banner, and his performance was said to be legendary. Despite the 30-minute lines for water and hour-long wait to use a toilet, the Woodstock Festival was a huge success. There was a lot of drugs, a lot of sex and nudity, and a lot of mud. There was also 2 deaths and 2 births. Performer Richie Havens later said about the concert, "Woodstock was not about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It was spiritually about love, about sharing and helping each other, living in peace and harmony for 3 days." After Woodstock, the 4 organizers took a huge financial hit because of the declaration of a free concert. However, a movie about Woodstock came out, which helped them regain a lot of the money that was lost. Woodstock was looked at in 2 different ways when it was over. One way, people saw it as a disgusting nightmare and thought of it as nothing more than some angry, rebellious teenagers swimming in mud for an excuse to do drugs. But most of the youth of the time saw it as a counterculture and could not be more satisfied with the results. The concert gave them hope that as young teenagers it was possible for them to get their message across and achieve the goals they wanted to see for their country. Woodstock Music Festival relates to the core themes of change and innovation, for it was a time when the decade as well as the mood of the country was changing. No one had ever seen a concert so large, and no one ever imagined it could happen. The concert also relates to rebel in society. Everything about the concert was rebellious. The location, the music, the concertgoers, and especially the drugs.